speaking about your story from a place of strength, and of course you have this whole idea that story is very powerful for each individual.
People don't retain facts devoid of meaning. So when we talk about story, we're talking about the meaning behind facts. To the point that the overarching storyline is really relevant to our lives. And the meaning that we draw from that story determines how we carry ourselves into every situation. So, for instance, an individual is at a job, they are not performing well, they get fired. What information should be drawn from that? There's one side of that story which says, this is just not the job for you. You're very talented in other areas, but this thing you're not good at, and you're not going to become better at it. There's that version, that meaning behind the story. The other story that an individual may take or draw from those facts are that they are terrible at everything, and they go into a deep, dark depression and disappear forever. Those two paths are what I would say one of strength and one of weakness. Either owning what has occurred, drawing a appropriate meaning, a measured amount of meaning, not making something that making too much of something that should be made less of, and not making less of something that should be made much of. That's what I would consider strength. Whereas weakness generally keys in on one part of the story and makes that supreme, rather than keeping track of the overarching storyline.
Yeah.
So that's what I talk about when I'm talking about this idea of owning your story and living out your story as from a point of strength.
And also what I'm hearing there is that you have to have enough awareness to understand the fact that your story is one of many that collides with other stories, other people's stories. And then there's, stories to scale, like a national story or a cultural story or a religious story or whatever. To be human involves an element of being a living, breathing story, or a collection of them, that then comes into interaction with other ones. And what I think we try to do often in Western culture is we try to switch from story to formula. And I've experienced some frustration with this recently, with the people who say, well, just do what I did and everything will work out. And it's like, it's not that simple, because I'm not living your story. I'm living mine, and mine collides with the world's stories differently than yours does.
For anybody who's ever been in therapy, one of the perhaps aggravating things that I've heard people talk about is the idea that the therapist never tells you what to do.
Right.
And a lot of times, a person's going to therapy because they want to know what to do. How can I quickly fix this issue in my life that they may accurately understand as the real root issue, and they might not. There's an old saying that says, you don't judge my life by the page that you walked in on, or something like that. Each of us has elements of success, elements of failure, elements of joy, elements of sorrow, pain, pleasure. We experience the range, or can experience the range of circumstances, and then we have to draw some meaning off of it, because we don't leave our lives in a state of unreconciled meaning.